Well, hello, Glue Troopers. It's Max. And since I wasn't home to do a live stream, I thought I'd do a Roadcast real quick. Since I'm doing this from a hotel room in Stamford, Connecticut on my cell phone, there will not be all the fancy graphics to which we have all become so accustomed. And I'll stick in what images I can. Anyway, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One Glue Trooper had suggested talking about not just the first kit you ever built, which we've talked about before. In my case, I'm about 99% sure it was the Airfix BTK Spitfire in a bag, about 1965, 66. I think it was about 65. But also, have you ever built that kit since then? And I know a few of you guys have managed to grab kits that it was like your first kit and you were able to find it on eBay or whatever and pay the premium for the nostalgia, but you were able to do the kit justice. And I certainly have done several kits over again. I personally have not found or done the BTK Spitfire again. And to be honest, if I found an original one, I'd probably just leave it in the bag. If I found a repop, I'd build it. But that's me. And even though I'm a builder, there are some things that are just sacred. And that also brings up another question. Not only what was it, but what kind of job did you do on it? Did you paint it? Mine was an absolute disaster. Of course, I was 5 years old, maybe. I had seen my brother's models, but I didn't know anything about how they built. I had my grandmother cut the decals out, and we didn't realize that they were water slides, so we taped them on the side of an unpainted model that I'd glued together. You can imagine the imagery on that, and it disappeared shortly thereafter. I don't know. I probably played with it till it broke or something. I don't really remember. But I bought it at my dad's, didn't buy it. My dad's, I believe it was his cousin, owned a drugstore, and he had little bagged models hanging on, those, where you have the pegboard with the little metal I guess you call them arms sticking out, and you hang stuff on them. And he had basically the sundries section, toys and sundries. And we had gone to their drugstore, and this was I believe it was in Bainbridge, Georgia. And we'd gone there on Sunday, I believe, when it was closed to get something. I'd seen the models hanging there, and of course, being a little boy, I was like, airplanes, models, I want. And he gave me the Spitfire, which is, I think it was 39 cents or something. And here you go, if it'll shut you up. And I think we tried to put it together with white glue and then tape the decals on. My grandmother didn't know anything about them. It was God, it was a travesty. But, you just can't buy memories like that. Anyway, then I don't know, was that time or a later time, I also got what I'm pretty sure was I think it was a MiG-19, which I believe was the Farmer. I seem to remember that. And it was another bag kit. And that one I actually got the proper glue for and built, but again, didn't paint it. And I think by that point, I may have known about the water slide decals. I was probably a whopping 6 or 7 years old by then. But if I saw those kits again, I'm sure I'd grab them. And these things were small. The MiG was really small scale. It was probably a 1 to 100 scale. I have to go look in the Airfix and see what they had. I'm not sure it was an Airfix. It was a bag kit. It wasn't boxed. And it just brings back memories when people ask you questions like that. And you go, I don't know, and you stop and think about it. And then later in the day, hours after they asked you, the thing will pop in your head. Oh yeah, you can't remember it when you're trying to, but when you just forget about it and give it a while, it's like the memory banks are rusty, Captain. But eventually, they come back. Yes, that was the answer. And so that was something I thought was kind of interesting to talk about. And so just leaving now we'll probably talk about this again at the next live stream. But guys, if you want to, or save it for the live stream, just pop down in the comment section, what was your first kit? And have you ever built it again? Did you paint it? How did it turn out? Just any details. And hang on to that, because I'm sure we'll be revisiting this. So that was just something I thought you guys might enjoy. Because let's be honest, as much as we all love building models and building the new stuff, for a lot of us, there's still a lot of nostalgia attached. And, you can't live in the past, but you can visit once in a while. And on to other things. The Stinson that I built, the Pegaso repop of the old Stinson, is I found a sandwich box to put it in, because I had removed the prop and wheels and tail wheel. So I think it'll probably, I had to repack my bag and specifically arrange my bag to make sure it didn't get crushed, but I think I'm going to get it home safely. So far it's holding up. And I had made an almost throwaway comment, which I'd made with the first one, about doing it like the Stinson in the movie This Island Earth, which actually I think was an earlier version of the Stinson, but Stinson only has so few movie roles. Beggars can't be choosers. But a couple of glue troopers had challenged me to go ahead and not only make it from This Island Earth, but to make a diorama with the Metaluna Mutant. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, the Metaluna Mutant's a 112 scale, the kit's 148, they're not even close. But I thought, there might be a 112 scale balsa kit of the Stinson, and if I did that, then I could, use the kit that Atlantis is finally selling. They got the rights to use the molds from the individual who had acquired them, the individual that had them made. And let's see if I did that and made a nice 112 scale balsa Stinson to go with it, and maybe found out some 1 to 12 characters, a guy and a girl, to go with it. Maybe I could make one heck of a big diorama, and that's something that might look good at one of the model conventions, because God knows I don't have any place in my house to put it. But that rapidly started spiraling out of control, because I realized I've got so many irons in the fires that I just can't take on another project right now. But if I get one, I'll put it on the shelf, and it'll be one of those at some point in the future. Dun, dun, dun. But then I was thinking, with the little Stinson, I could just take that 1 to 141 scale little man with his arm raised that came with the Cessna 180 from Monogram, which was for some reason 1 to 41 scale. And I'm thinking, a little milliput, a little sculpting, my wife's talents, we could turn him into a Metaluna, mutant monster, or just label it when COVID goes bad. And he would be, because he's a little bit larger scale than the 148 scale, he'd be about the right scale, because I think the Metaluna mutants are right around 7 feet tall. And that actually scales out. So I'm not saying I'm going to do that. I'm just investigating the possibility. And by the way, for those of you who commented on the windows, no, I am not going to cut out the windows and make an interior. I'll just make the windows probably black. That's way more than I wish to take on. I was just simply commenting that some people have done it, and kudos to them. My thought is, since the one from This Island Earth was blue and yellow, would probably be paint the whole thing blue, then do the windows, then tape everything off and shoot the yellow, because I think the yellow would show on top of the blue. Some people always say shoot the lighter color first, but in this situation, I'm not sure that would be the best approach. I think the blue might help the yellow pop, but that would be a multi-day paint scheme, because you really probably use enamels for that and give it a lot of time to harden. And that segues into the next thing I was thinking about. I was talking with a couple of people how I've been having some real problems with my airbrush, and I'd be using isopropyl alcohol 90% to cut the acrylic paints, but eventually and often I don't get that much in the way of spray out of it before it gums up the gun. And maybe I'm not thinning it enough, but what I realize is acrylic really needs a retarder. At least my experience has been, because the isopropyl dries out and evaporates so fast that the stuff turns back into clay right there in the gun. Now, I don't know if the X20A thinner evaporates quite so quickly. It seems like I've had better luck with that. The stuff's so expensive, I've been using the cheap isopropyl because you get a lot of it for cheap, but I think I've been shooting myself in the foot doing that. It's time to spend a little money. And I'm going to start cutting the stuff with the X20A. And I'm not sure what the mix is. I figure it's about a 60-40, although some people do 50-50. But one of the problems that one glue trooper pointed out, because he saw on the Troop Spitfire that it did, the spray pattern showed some of the telltale signs of using high pressure, almost as much as 20 psi, which is way more than you're supposed to use in an airbrush. I think 14 is a standard, and some people get down as low as 8 or 10. And you guys, I'm sure, who are experienced with airbrushes have a lot. Right now, you're probably already burning up the keyboard, and please do, because I've watched the videos, and I'm certainly willing to take all the tips from folks. But this is just me being cheap, and there's really no excuse for that. It's painting with an airbrush, and of course, you got to clean the thing as soon as you're done with it. You can't wait. You can't, I'll clean it tomorrow. You have to pull everything apart and clean it right there. But I've had crap gumming up in the little forcing cone up up at the tip, and I've had it gum up really badly actually inside the hopper, and that's just and I'm like, okay, I know some of these paints are old, but some are new, and the other spray gun doesn't seem to have that problem with them, but it's a newer, much more powerful one. And anyway, I don't think it's the gun's fault. I think I have simply failed to properly mix the stuff and properly clean the gun when I'm done. And it really needs to be stripped. I've watched a couple of videos, and like, my gun never cleans up as easily as these folks who are using it on the interweb. So those are just a few of the things that are on my mind. And one thing I thought I would last closing thought was, I talked about the Stinson 108. Now, I'm pretty sure that this Pegaso and the Olin kit are a Stinson 108-2. The Stinson airplane company made a lot of planes, and they actually wound up overproducing after the war. They had converted their Stinson into a military version, and which I believe was the L5 Sentinel, and it did okay. It was, not the greatest plane on earth, but it did what it was supposed to do. A lot of people prefer the Cubs and other airplanes, and I don't think any of them are as good as the German Fiesler Stork, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, the post-war boom didn't materialize in general aviation. They built a lot of planes they couldn't sell. So I want to say it was 49, they sold out to Piper, and it became Piper Stinson for a while. And they made a variety of changes to the plane. I talked about the 108-1 and -2. They added the baggage door, the bigger engine, and I believe the rudder trim. And then -3 had the straight tail on it, the trailing edge of the straight tail, and a much bigger dorsal. And that's the one I remember seeing a lot when I was a kid. It was a very popular model, although some people complained that big tail made it a bit of a trick in a crosswind, which makes sense. But this kit, the more I look at it, I'm pretty sure it's a 108-2. If the dorsal spine seems a little bit big compared to the actual -2, I think it was just a drafting error. And that brought up the question of, you have to understand that these models are built from engineering drawings. They don't, the guys who cut the molds don't just grab a slab of steel and start whacking away on it. They have actual engineering drawings that they use. And a lot of companies will actually give kit model makers the actual engineering drawings so they can make a hyper-accurate model. And when they don't, though, which back in the 50s, when this kit was probably first being hatched, that wasn't necessarily the case. They would go out and just photograph them, use drawings from books, and any slight error in a sales brochure would be translated into the actual model. And a classic example of that was when Aurora wanted to make the Piper Cherokee, and they actually had the pattern cut, but it didn't go into production. And they finally got, a year or two later, got the green light. And when they did, Piper had actually changed the airplane. They had added that third window, which the model doesn't have, because they basically used photos from the sales brochure of an updated version, whereas the molds were from a 1 or 2 year previous version that didn't have that third window. So what you saw in the box was not what you got in the box. And that's just one minor example of many others. But that being said, the Pegaso kit, or the Olin kit, isn't bad at all. And I just think it's a 108-2 with, possibly a few imperfections that are common to the era. But overall, it's really, when you think about, these are all hand cut mechanically and everything, I should quit whining. It's a good kit. I mean, it's a nice representation of the airplane. And this is the kind of airplane, I think, if somebody was to make some new molds for it, I think they'd find some customers, because I don't know of any other Stinson kits other than perhaps the L5 Sentinel. Well, anyway, those were just a few things that were on my mind today I thought I'd chat about, and we'll probably revisit them at the next live stream. Well, guys, I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully tomorrow evening I'll be back in the warm state of Florida. Well, that's all for tonight. Take care and model on.